Knowledge of the past and of the places of the earth are the ornament and food of man. Now that sounds like a pretty cool quote, am I right? What I even like about this quote more is that it isn't just a quote about talking about history and unraveling the past of it, but also the person who said it, which is none other than the man, the myth, the legend, Leonardo da Vinci, the very same Renaissance man that we all come to know and love all these centuries later. But he wasn't just the Renaissance man, mind you. This man stands to the test of time as he is still being talked about to this very day. But it does raise a very important question in regards to Leonardo da Vinci, and that is, what exactly is his life story? What makes him so important of a historical figure that makes us want to learn and read and do research about him in this current time? But thankfully, Professor History here has got you covered, so let's dive in and see who exactly the Renaissance man is, what it was his life story, his achievements, and of course his legacy today. One thing to point out about Leonardo da Vinci is that no, he did not create some sort of a conspiracy theory in regards to Christian mythology like how it was expressed in Dan Brown's Da Vinci Code, nor was he buddies with a cult of assassins that may or may have existed in that time period, okay? As much as I hate to admit it and wish it was all true, those are all works of fiction and we gotta treat it as such, okay? Like we got that covered? Secondly, Leonardo da Vinci wasn't just a painter, but he was basically everything and everyone all at once, or as put it in historical terms, he was known as a polymath, where he was more than just a painter, he was an engineer, he was a military mind, he was also a scientist, so many things that might as well just say, hey, I am just a regular dude who happens to do X, Y, and Z. And also, yeah, I was referring to the movie there. By the way, highly recommend. Totally worth your time. As many know Da Vinci as, he was of course the Renaissance man and painter, where throughout most of his life, and especially in the 1460s, he was under the apprenticeship of Andrea Verrocchi. And it wasn't until the 1490s and 1500 that he would go on and make some of the greatest hits in the art history period, such as The Virgin of the Rocks and the iconic Last Supper and Mona Lisa in 1503 and 1506. But again, you have to remember that Da Vinci was much more than a painter. In fact, some records indicate that Da Vinci was also that of a scientist, an observer of the sciences for the most part, as he would inspect and analyze the anatomy of the human body, not just for his artworks, but also because he was a curious man. You have to remember, he was the Renaissance man, and nothing stopped him from dissecting corpses and grave robbing them in the middle of the night, though some do indicate that that was sort of like theories in place and all that. Again, conspiracy theories in the bunch, and if you played the Assassin's Creed games, then you know it was just kind of like to tighten the whole relationship between the assassin of the time, Ezio, and Leonardo da Vinci. But hey, you know, again, these are all fiction for the most part, I hope. Yet in pursuit of all these sciences, Leonardo da Vinci was a very inquisitive person, and besides the Vitruvian Man sketch, which is an iconic sketch of his depicting the perfect proportions of the human body, there was also various other sketches of his work as an engineer, a military engineer to be exact, as he would often construct sketches of helicopters, tanks, crossbows, and even something as unique as a parachute or a flying machine at the time. Although for a little bit of added context for why Da Vinci was mostly a military engineer, and that's because during the course of the Renaissance period, especially in Italy for that matter, it was a time of war and chaos in terms of its political power, given that the royal families were very affluent and influential in their ability to promote certain political agendas at the time, and so it was a matter of trying to unify the papal states or a means of conquering them under an iron fist. Yeah, I'm talking about you, Cesare Borgia. And basically it is from here where we see the military mind and perspective of Leonardo da Vinci more so than his artworks, believe it or not. In fact, some other historians out there, military historians to be specific, they often resort in trying to classify Leonardo da Vinci more as an engineer rather than an artist, because in terms of the ratio of artwork to military engineering sketches, Da Vinci had a lot of his mind towards figuring out whether or not they can conquer the entire world. Funny enough, speaking of Cesare Borgia, Leonardo da Vinci worked with him during the course of his military campaign in Italy, as well as also with Ludovico Sforza, one of the royal families at the time during the Renaissance period. But there is one thing to note about Da Vinci as to whether or not his inventions were indeed realized in the end, or rather or not he limited himself in terms of really specifying the details in terms of how each and every invention should be constructed, in which case it kind of makes sense why it took a really long time for the parachute to be a thing. Plus, you also have to remember that the Wright brothers made the first ever airplane in the 1920s, and it goes to show that Leonardo da Vinci wasn't just a very incredible man, but he was also limited with the technology of his time. Or so we think. But hey, now that's another conspiracy theory for another time, and we can debate whether or not it could be fictional or not fictional. But at the end of the day, there's so much to really talk about Leonardo da Vinci and all of his feats, and you have to remember that he was just an ordinary man like you and I. He had the same time, the same number of days and months and lifespan, although probably reduced given the health system back in the day, but I don't want to talk about that, to be honest. But he was just a regular person at the end of the day. But what makes him so iconic and infamous as an historical figure is the amount of records and achievements that he was able to do throughout the course of his life, making him the Renaissance man that we know and enjoy and acknowledge to this very moment in time. And it's very important to understand that Leonardo da Vinci was one of many that hallmarked the Renaissance period at the time, as well as you got Donatello, Raphael, Michelangelo, Machiavelli, and of course Cesare Borgia, the church, and everything that encompasses what the Renaissance is as a period, which maybe as a teaser we'll talk more about in the near future. Yet at the end of the day, this is just a brief summary and overview of Leonardo da Vinci's life. There's so much we don't know about him today, and hopefully in the future we'll cover more about that down the line. But hey, if you do want to learn more about other historical figures, let me know in the comments down below. I'm totally down to do a good brief overview of others such as Cleopatra, Blackbeard, Alexander the Great, Caesar himself, and so much more. But hey, this is all we can learn about Da Vinci as of so far, but I do want to leave off one quick life lesson in regards to Da Vinci as a person and how it applies to you. Much like Da Vinci may have been an ordinary man like you and I, he was also very exceptional in the sense that he was very curious about the world around him. And to tie that with the quote in the beginning of the video, that's how we should be in life as well. History is a means to be curious and to inspire others into learning about the past and applying it into the present in hopes for a better future. And I hope you guys do that in your daily lives as well. But hey, this is all I have to say for today's history lesson. Thank you all so much for watching. This is Professor History signing you all off and seeing you in that next class, alright? Don't forget to hit the books and see you all in that next history lesson, alright?